Hey guys, Shalana here. Welcome to another episode of the Magical Negro Podcast. I know it's been a while, and I'm also going to post this on YouTube because I think this is just one of those videos where I have to talk about it, and YouTube deserves this because Cloned Tyrone was just one of those movies that there's a lot to grasp, and I don't feel like I covered everything in the YouTube video. So we're going to deep dive into it. And I've seen this movie about 6 times now, and every time I rewatch it, I find myself picking up more and more things. And I don't know why I'm just gravitating towards this movie. And on top of that, I ended up watching Undercover Brother just so I could compare the two movies, just because it's been a while since I saw Undercover Brother. And with Cloned Tyrone being about the conspiracy of the man and vice versa, I thought it was fun watch the two movies, compare them while I do this podcast episode. So without further ado, let's just dive into it. We're talking Cloned Tyrone, we're talking Undercover Brother, and maybe a little bit more about what else I'm watching for the rest of the month. So let's get into it. Cloned Tyrone, I feel like, is an instant classic. I know right now there's a lot of people detracting from the movie. Like, if you're looking online, there's always going to be people talking about this movie is not as good, it doesn't live up to the hype, or we're making it seem bigger than what it is, or flat out, I've seen people say it's trash. I listen to podcasts like the Joe Budden podcast, and they say that shit is trash. And I'm sitting here like, huh? I don't think we're watching the same movie. And I feel like when you say things like that, like it's trash, it's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a reductive argument. You don't have, because the reasoning behind the movie itself being trash or whatever they're saying is because of the black stereotypes and kind of being on the nose. But this movie is one of those movies where the messaging is on the nose. Like, Cloned Tyrone is not about subtlety at all. Like, the plot is pretty much revealed early in the movie. Hell, the trailer is pretty much told you what the plot's about, even with the things about the chicken, which we're going to dive deep into because I did a lot of research on fried chicken, and I feel like I'm going to get into it because I didn't even know fried chicken was invented by the Irish. Like, dead ass. Like, the way we fried chicken is invented by the Irish, and yet they put that as a black stereotype. We're going to get into that. But like I was saying earlier about the reductiveness of saying it's trash because of the stereotypes, pimps, drugs. I said pimps, drugs, pimp hoes and drug dealers. Because using those and being overtly on the nose with the stereotypes, I don't think that reduces the messaging of the movie. If anything, I think that enhances the message, because when you take those things, it's not leaving anything to interpretation. Like, if you're watching Cloned Tyrone, it's not one of those movies where it's left up to our interpretation where is this a good thing or a bad thing? No. The movie's flat out letting you know these establishments are terrible for our community. These are things that are being put in there. And I know we know this already. I know this isn't anything new. This is not some great revelation. But you have to keep putting things like this out there. You have to keep letting people see it. Like, the messaging can't get lost in the fact that you've seen it already. You have to keep watching. You have to keep putting this message out there. People have to keep understanding, like, this is happening. It's been happening and it's continuing to happen. The year is 2023 and it's still going on. It's not like the civil rights movements happened and everything was hunky-dory. Like, this shit is a perpetual cycle. And while there are strides happening, there still needs to be more happening. Like, we still need to see these systems for what they are. And it's not just, let me not get into that, because I was about to say, it dives deeper than just race. Because if you remove race from the equation, like the old Fontaine, the original Tyrone wanted to do in the movie, if you remove the concept of race from society, it just boils down to a class system, and ultimately the same shit. Like, so it's more so akin to human nature as opposed to like some great, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. Like, I was going somewhere with it and I just fucked it. Like, it's more akin to human nature as opposed to some sort of problem that we can solve by changing melanin shades in people's skin. Like, it's something innate in humans. But that's a topic for another subject. That is a subject for another video and another topic. Right now, they cloned Tyrone, and I want to dive deep into it because there's a few things I was researching while diving deep into my research. Like, initially, when I was watching Undercover Brother, I thought to myself, I forgot about the chicken subplot with the general. And now that got me thinking, chicken really is like no cap, like chicken is something really, fried chicken really associated with the black community. And I grew up in the hood. I grew up in Miami, and there was Popeyes, KFC, churches, all within like a couple block radius from my house. And I never thought anything of it. But now I'm older. I live in the suburbs. I don't see any of those things. Like I have to decide I'm going to Popeyes or I'm going to churches. And I don't know why I still go to those things, but I still do. Fuck it. Like they put it in our communities and it's ingrained in our system. And to this day, like I don't live in the hood no more. I don't need to be eating that type of chicken, but I still do because it worked. Fuck it. Like their programming worked. So I have to consciously drive to those places and find it. And I got to thinking, like, how did we end up doing that? Like, why is fried chicken so ingrained in black society? So I decided to research the origins of fried chicken. Come to find out, fried chicken isn't even created like the way it is now. Like, I'm not like every culture fries chicken, obviously, but the way chicken is fried, the way it is now, was created by the Irish. Like Irish people started frying their chickens this way, deep frying chicken the way that we eat it now. And all black people really did was add seasoning to it, right? Which is essentially the story of humanity, right? Any food you have, black people just add some seasoning and make it better. But all black people did was add seasoning to the chicken, and now it's delicious. It became ingrained in American society. And back in the day, during slavery times, the only thing black people could raise were chickens. So, of course, what they do? Fried chicken, right? And because they started adding seasoning, it was an Irish dish and it was nothing. But because black people started doing their thing, putting their foot in it, putting seasoning, bam, it became ingrained in Southern culture. It became a part of black society in the South and just became part of special occasion dinners, Sunday dinners, family dinners revolved around fried chicken, and that became a thing. So far, nothing denigrating it with black society from its inception up until slavery, and even after the abolishment of slavery. Like white people still ate fried chicken, black people still ate fried chicken. It was looked at as a sort of, like I said, gathering thing, which was just part of Southern American society. But then this movie came out, which is crazy because movies like They Cloned Tyrone and others are movies that actually get into the lexicon and they actually get into conversation and kind of shape society. Like movies have power to shape society and start conversations. So the movie Birth of a Nation, the original Birth of a Nation, which is arguably, if not even arguably, which is the most racist movie of all time, which was about black men and how they are monsters, rapists, whatever, etc., and had that propaganded the negative stereotypes against African Americans. And in that movie, the black niggas was just tearing up some fried chicken, like he was just fucking it up. And because of the way that movie presented black people and the way that they demonized black men in that movie and kind of like put black men and white women at odds. I'm not gonna dive into that because that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to get into that, but that movie also started that perpetuating that narrative, which imagine that movie. I think it was in 1915 or 1915, around that time. That movie came out, and we're in 2023, so over 100 years later, and that movie still shaped our society to this day. So that lets you know how movies and culture impact society, which also ties into the Cloned Tyrone because with music and entertainment and how it controls moods and like all of it is mega brainwashing if we really get down to the nitty gritty of film, which is why I like doing what I do, which is why I like watching movies, and which is why I really take my channel and I break down things as opposed to giving my thoughts in reviews. Like yeah, I liked it. It was a cool movie. The director did this. Oh my god, this cinematography was spectacular. All that shit is cool and all. But when you dig deeper into the hidden meaning of movies, you can see the messaging of the director, the writer. What is this movie trying to say? What is the message here? What am I supposed to glean from this? Because everything we consume, we're supposed to glean something from it. Like nothing is just mindless. Everything out in the ether is not mindless. Even this video coming out to you guys isn't a mindless video about, oh, they cloned Tyrone. I want you guys to learn some stuff about like the history of it all. So going back to the movie, the nigga was fucking up some chicken and they associated negative shit niggas did in that movie with niggas. So therefore black people and ignorance and all that shit became associated with fried chicken from a movie. So it's funny that Undercover Brother and They Cloned Tyrone, both of these movies are talking about fried chicken in that aspect because that is essentially what dictates it all. It comes full circle. Movies and movies and movies, messaging. The whole time black people had nothing to do with fried chicken, right? What the fuck, right? Like it's not even our shit, it's the Irish shit. Like Irish, side note, I love fried chicken and I love potatoes. Both are staples of the Irish. And I could fuck up a mean shepherd's pie. Like, we be talking about white people not having seasoning and can't cook, right? But Irish and Italian, hey, I digress. But aside from that, right? Once we move on from that, let's start talking about some other things which I found interesting in the movie. And I want to talk about my favorite character and arguably almost everyone's favorite character, Yo-Yo, and the fact that the prostitutes weren't cloned. And speaking of clone, there was this thread on Twitter I saw about this guy saying deeper meaning about They Cloned Tyrone is were the clones, like all the establishments and drug dealers, which is a good point. So I'm not going to bite his shit. Like I'm just going to leave his link in the comment section below and you guys could check that out. But he's right. You are the clones. That's why the movie ended the way it did and Tyrone popped open. It was like, oh shit, they cloned Tyrone because there's a nigga on his couch doing the same thing Fontaine does every day, watching they clone Tyrone, laughing and saying, shit, this fucked up. And he's going up and doing the same shit again. There's a pimp watching the shit, laughing. He's like, damn, that's fucked up. Laughing at the movie, taking the messaging, getting up, and then going out to pimp his hoes. Like, there's hoes who watch the movie and still popping pussy. Like, you go, Backpage not a thing anymore, but like, you can go to one of the websites and you can still see them out there. So that's crazy. So I'm not going to bite his shit. I'm just going to put it in the description below. But when it comes to Yo-Yo, right, and prostitutes in itself, like, I found it funny. Like, when I was doing my research and I was looking into why is prostitution illegal, because prostitution is the oldest, like, I think prostitution might have been the first business ever. Like, if we think about it, goods and services being exchanged. You have a service, I have the goods. You have the goods, and I got something. You got what I want. You got it. It's part of your body, right? And I got something you want. So let me get that for that. That's been since the beginning of mankind. So it's the oldest profession in the world. But why was it illegal? Like, why did America decide to ban it? And America decided to ban it 100 years ago in 1910. So that means from 1776 up until 1910, that shit was cool. What happened? Like, we know America doesn't just do things to do things. So I started looking into it and I saw the Mann Act and I looked into the history of the Mann Act and then it was called the White Slave Act. Huh? So digging a little deeper, doing my research, I came to find out that the reason why prostitution started becoming illegal was because of white women being forced into the trade. I mean, granted, it was happening. Like, sex trafficking is a thing, I don't want to dive too deep into this. Is YouTube. I'm gonna put this on YouTube, so I don't want to get too deep into that shit. But like, it's a thing. So, boom, they passed the law, and now it became weird because the interpretations of the law are flexible because it has the clause of saying an immoral act. And who deems morality? Who makes up morality? The powers that be, of course. The people in charge dictate what's moral, just like all these contracts have morality clauses, and that is flexible based on whoever's in charge. So this immorality act allowed them to act with impunity as to what they deemed immoral and not, which of course helped them prosecute people like R. Kelly, because what R. Kelly was doing is immoral, right? So it helped prosecute things like that. But at the same time, what I found very funny was the fact that this White Slave Act, the first two people convicted of him were black. And it's like, and like, what? I mean, I'm not surprised because it's America, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I get it, right? But it's interesting because it was, I have their names here. Bella Moore, who was a mixed woman, was the first one arrested because she was a prostitute. She was a mixed prostitute, and it was like, nah, it's illegal. You're going to jail. And I'm not stupid. I watched Boardwalk Empire. That shit took place in the 1910s, right? And prostitution was running rampant, and niggas ain't care. The government ain't care. The Mann Act was passed, but it was still happening. I mean, granted, it was to stop them from going over across state lines, but it was happening regardless. But the first person to get arrested is a black mixed woman. All right, I see what time we on. Boom, second person to get arrested. Jack Johnson, a famous athlete. And what did the Jack Johnson do? Have sex with a white woman, his girlfriend, travel with her across state lines, and that was enough to convict him of violating the Mann Act. I mean, this is important. We don't have to clone the prostitutes. We don't have to do any of that thing because what we have are laws that allow us to prosecute them as is. So fuck it. Like, why would I clone you when my law is flexible enough where I can interpret it however I want against you? I mean, I'm going to say this because it's true, but it's not how I feel. I mean, it is how I feel, but like, I don't agree with it on principle. But like, yo, this was like, whoever designed this system is genius. Like, this whole repressive system that the United States, just in general, the powers that be who run the nation, like this whole regime, this master plan that they have going on, it's fucking genius. The systems, the things they have in place. Let's talk about Tyrone Fontaine. I mean, Tyrone too, Tyrone Fontaine, they're all the same person. Let's talk about these drug dealers, right? Let's talk about the fact that the war on drugs was introduced by the US government in 1970s. It started with Nixon, Reagan doubled down on it, and essentially it started mass incarceration. The people who were mass incarcerated the most were black people. How did the black people get the drugs in the first place? Because, cocaine is expensive. The CIA and the Contras, the whole CIA Contra thing, for those of you who don't know, Nicaragua and Central America, they're always going through their civil wars. And back then, the United States was big on democracy, fighting the Soviets and fighting socialism. So they would back insurgency groups against socialist governments and vice versa, to essentially, in order to destabilize socialism around its borders. So in order to fund the weapons, the United States itself couldn't directly give rebels money. That's like a violation of a bunch of international laws and a bunch of bullshit, right? So they can't do that. So in order to raise funds for this, they would sneak cocaine into America themselves, sell them to drug dealers, Freeway Ricky Ross, like there's a bunch of other people. I'm not gonna name names, but look into it. Snowfall, prime example. If you watch the Snowfall, which again, like I said, movies and TV show will tell you a lot about what's happening. Snowfall, Franklin, Reed, all those interact. I said Reed, Teddy. His name was Teddy. Franklin, Teddy, all their interactions, like that was a real thing that happened. They would take the drugs. They would sell them to black people. The black people would then distribute the drugs in the community. The drugs are illegal. So now the CIA is funding the drug trade, destroying these communities, and the police are arresting these people. The DEA are arresting these people, and the cycle continues. But the people who are in charge of this is the U.S. government, and they know about it, and they're using it because it's okay. Because ultimately, the communities that are being the most affected by this are the black communities that were using crack as opposed to cocaine, which is a rich person's drug. And that I can really get it. That's a video for a whole nother topic. But boom. So now you have the war on drugs, but then you're cloning these individuals, which again, if we're the clones, and not me and you specifically, but like drug dealers, etc. If they're the clones, because ultimately they are, when one drug dealer goes to jail, another one steps up and repeats the process. A kid grows up, that's all he sees. He wants that life. He grows up and becomes that. He's essentially a clone. He's not the same DNA, but he's a clone of the archetype. He's the clone of the, what's the word I'm looking for? He's a clone of the archetype, the subtype. He's a clone of the archetype of drug dealer. And he grows up and it's a cycle that continues going. And how do the drugs keep coming in? Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, because ultimately, where the fuck niggas gonna get cocaine from? Niggas won't even speak Spanish. That was really stop. Let me stop. Okay. But no, seriously, like, in that time period, like Pablo, the Colombians, Mexicans, how were niggas going to have that much of a sophisticated infrastructure? Because remember, at that time, we didn't have the means. Like, it was like real stuff. When that was happening, we were still trying to integrate schools and share water fountains when drugs started really coming into America. And then when the 70s came, of course, the civil rights movement happened, but ultimately we were all in our own segregated neighborhoods. How would we get in contact with those things unless they were planted there? And this movie, that's all this movie is doing, is telling us, hey, you know those things we know? Don't forget them. And instead of making it so super preachy, because ultimately I feel like what people would have enjoyed more was if this movie was a more serious dramatization of it all. But this shit is deep. Like, I'm talking to you guys about it. I'm trying to keep it lighthearted. But ultimately, this is some deep psychological shit. Like, if you sit there and think about it, like, what the fuck? No, seriously, like, if you sit and think about how fucked up it is and how ultimately you can't do a thing about it, I can't do a thing about it, the only way that something can happen is exactly like it happened in the movie. We have to come together, because individually, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, I'm gonna record this video, and then what I'm gonna go do? I'm gonna go to Washington and be like, hey, with my picket sign, let's not do this. I can't do anything by myself. And I ain't gonna hold you. Like, I'm not gonna go do nothing by myself. Like, I'm gonna just lose, and I'm not gonna take that L. But together, this messaging, now that I understand what it is, I can make a video like this. I can, maybe tell you guys about it a little bit. It's deeper than the movie. And this is another reason I love movies, because it sparks conversations like this. So this is more than just another movie. Now there's the messaging. Now you guys understand it. I gave you guys enough things to look and research about and be like, hey, I wonder what. And you guys start informing people, and now we have knowledge, and knowledge, we know togetherness. We stand a chance. Share this video, and ultimately, we can make a change that way. These systems are not infallible. Like, they're not. Ultimately, with more knowledge, we know more. Like, I grew up in the hood. I don't live there no more. And I'm not saying that like you have to leave the hood for you to grow out of it or anything like that. I'm just saying like those systems were put in my path and a bunch of other people's paths too. But some people, and they made it out of there because of knowledge and stuff that they have. Some people had opportunity and no knowledge, or knowledge and no opportunity. They're stuck over there, or these systems are tearing lives apart. But with knowledge, we know better. So we know better, we do better, we teach better, we understand how it is, and we just don't fall for the bullshit. Like, if we collectively decide, hey, we're not doing this shit no more, it makes a difference. Like, how about we come together, buy our own grocery stores, do shit like that. Ooh, my bad. I mean, I'm not looking for. This is a video explaining like tying the movie into relevant things. I'm not offering any sort of solution. So like, let me stop. I mean, I can in the longer podcast. You guys let me know if you like this podcast format of these videos, and I could do more. But ultimately, all I'm gonna say is, movies share shit like this. Like they make us dig deeper into things like that, and ultimately, these systems are not infallible. We saw the movie. They came together. They toppled. I mean, it was one city, but one city at a time, one mission at a time, one thing at a time. Ultimately, change can be had. That's it. That's really it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. This was an interesting take. This was a solo podcast. I don't know if you guys like this sort of thing. I want you guys to let me know. I want feedback in the comment section below. Just give me some feedback, and I'd greatly appreciate it. But without further ado, that's it for this episode. They Cloned Tyrone, instant classic. Like, fuck it. Like, this might be my favorite movie of the year. The year's not over yet, and I have some other movies to watch. Like Past Lives, I'm gonna check that out. But otherwise, this might be my favorite movie of the year. I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, guys, until next time, subscribe and share. Do not forget to share. That's what I meant to say. Do not forget to share.